this lecture, we will review the history of mental illness. In my previous lectures, we reviewed the difference between abnormal behavior and clinical psychology. And also, what is considered abnormal behavior is often dictated by the culture and/or society a person lives in. And unfortunately, the past has not treated the afflicted very well. In this lecture, we will examine how past societies viewed and dealt with mental illness. Now, prehistoric cultures often held a supernatural view of abnormal behavior and saw it as the work of evil spirits, demons, gods, or witches who took control of the person. This form of demonic possession often occurred when the person engaged in behavior contrary to the religious teachings of the time. Treatment by cave dwellers included a technique called trepanation, in which a stone instrument known as a trepan was used to remove part of the skull, creating an opening. Through it, the evil spirits could escape, thereby ending the person's mental affliction and returning them to normal behavior. The early Greek, Hebrew, Egyptian, and Chinese cultures used a treatment method called exorcism, in which evil spirits were cast out through prayer, magic, flogging, starvation, and having the person ingest horrible tasting drinks or noise making. Reflecting the idea of demonic possession, Greek physician Hippocrates said that mental disorders were akin to physical ailments and had natural causes. Specifically, they arose from brain pathology or head trauma, brain dysfunction or disease, and were also afflicted by heredity. Hippocrates classified mental disorders into three main categories, and he gave detailed clinical descriptions of both. He also described four main fluids of humors that directed normal brain functioning and personality: blood which arose in the heart, black bile arising in the spleen, yellow bile or choler from the liver, and phylum from the brain. Mental disorders occurred when the humors were in a state of imbalance, such as an excess of yellow bile causing frenzy and too much black bile causing depression. Hippocrates believed mental illness could be treated as any other disorder and focused on the underlying pathology. Also noteworthy was the Greek philosopher Plato, who said that the mentally ill were not responsible for their actions and should not be punished. It was the responsibility of the community and their families to care for them. The Greek physician Galen said that mental disorders had either a physical or psychological cause, including fear, shock, alcoholism, head injuries, adolescence, and changes in menstruation. In Rome, other physicians and philosophers rejected Hippocrates' idea of the four humors and instead stated that melancholy arises from grief, fear, and rage, not excess black bile. Roman physicians treated mental disorders with massage of warm baths, the hope being that their patients would be as comfortable as they could be. They practiced the concept of contrarius, or meaning opposite by opposite, and introduced contrasting stimuli to bring about balance in the physical and mental domain. An example would be considered a cold drink while in a warm bath. Now, the process made during the time of the Greeks and Romans was quickly revised during the Middle Ages with the increase in power of the Church and the fall of the Roman Empire. Mental illness was yet again explained as possession by the devil, and methods such as exorcism, flogging, prayer, and touching of relics, chanting, visiting holy sites, and holy water were used to rid the person of demonic influence. In extreme cases, the afflicted were exposed to confinement, beatings, and even execution. Scientific and medical explanations, such as those proposed by Hippocrates, were discarded. Group hysteria or mass madness was also seen when large numbers of people displayed similar symptoms and false beliefs. This included the belief that one was possessed by wolves or other animals and imitated their behavior, and a mania in large numbers of people had an uncontrollable desire to dance and jump. The latter was believed to have been caused by the bite of a wolf spider, now called the tarantula, and spread quickly from Italy to Germany and other parts of Europe, where it was called Saint Vitus dance. Perhaps the return to supernatural explanations during the Middle Ages makes sense given events of the time. The Black Death or the bubonic plague killed up to 1/3, or according to other estimates, almost half of the population. Famine, war, social oppression, and pestilence were also factors. The constant presence of death led to an epidemic of depression and fear. Near the end of the Middle Ages, mystical explanations for mental illness began to lose favor, and government officials regained some of their lost power over non-religious activities. Science and medicine were again called upon to explain psychopathology. The most noteworthy development in the realm of philosophy during the Renaissance was the rise of humanism, or the worldview that emphasizes human welfare and the uniqueness of the individual. This perspective helped continue the decline of supernatural views of mental illness. In the mid to late 1500s, German physician Johann Weins published his book on the deceits of the demons that rebuked the church's witch hunting handbook. Now, it argued that many accused of being witches and subsequently imprisoned, tortured, and or burned at the stake were mentally disturbed and not possessed by demons or the devil himself. He believed that, like the body, the mind was susceptible to illness. Not surprisingly, the book was eventually protested and banned by the church. It should be noted that these types of acts occurred not only in Europe, but also in the United States. The most famous example is the Salem witch trials of 1692, resulted in more than 200 people accused of practicing witchcraft and 20 deaths. The number of asylums or places of refuge for the mentally ill where they could receive care began to rise during the 16th century as the government realized there are too many people afflicted with mental illness to be left in private homes. Hospitals and monasteries were converted into asylums. Though the intent was benign in the beginning, as the facilities overcrowded, the patients came to be treated more like animals than people. In 1547, the Bethlehem Hospital opened in London with the sole purpose of confining those with mental disorders. Patients were chained up, placed on public display, and often heard crying out in pain. The asylum became a tourist attraction, with sightseers paying a penny to view the more violent patients, and soon was called Bedlam by local people, a term that today means a state of uproar and confusion. The rise of the moral treatment movement occurred in Europe in the late 18th century, and then in the United States in the early 19th century. The earliest proponent was Francis Pinel, the superintendent of La Bercy, a hospital for mentally ill men in Paris. Pinel stressed respectful treatment and moral guidance for the mentally ill, while considering their individual, social, and occupational needs, arguing that the mentally ill were sick people. Pinel ordered that chains be removed, outside exercise be allowed, sunny and well-ventilated rooms replace dungeons, and patients be extended kindness and support. This approach led to considerable improvement for many patients, so much so that several were released. Well, following Pinel's lead, William Turk, a Quaker tea merchant, established a pleasant rural estate called the York Retreat. The Quakers believed that all people should be accepted for who they are and treated kindly. At the retreat, patients would work, rest, talk about their problems, and pray. The work of Turk and others led to the passage of the Country Asylums Act in 1845, which required that every county provide asylum to the mentally ill. This sentiment extended to English colonies such as Canada, India, Australia, and the West Indies, as word of the maltreatment of patients at a facility in Kingston, Jamaica spread, leading to an audit of colony facilities and their policies. Reform in the United States started with the figure largely considered to be the father of American psychiatry, Benjamin Rush. Rush advocated for the humane treatment of the mentally ill, showing them respect and even giving them small gifts from time to time. Despite this, his practice included treatments such as bloodletting and purgatives, the invention of the tranquilizing chair, and reliance on astrology, showing that even he could not escape from the beliefs of the time. Due to the rise of the moral treatment movement, both in Europe and the United States, asylums became habitable places where those afflicted with mental illness could recover. Regrettably, its success was responsible for its decline. The number of mental hospitals greatly increased, leading to staffing shortages and a lack of funds to support them. Though treating patients humanely was a noble endeavor, it did not work for some patients, and other treatments were needed, though they had not been developed yet. Staff recognized that the approach worked best when the facility had 200 or fewer patients. But waves of immigrants arriving in the United States after the Civil War overwhelmed the facilities, and patients' counts soared to 1,000 or more. Prejudice against new arrivals led to discriminatory practices in which immigrants were not afforded the same moral treatments as native citizens, even when the resources were available to treat them. The moral treatment movement also fell due to the rise of the mental hygiene movement, which focused on the physical well-being of patients. Its leading proponent in the United States was Dorothy Dix, a New Englander who observed the deplorable conditions suffered by the mentally ill while teaching Sunday school to female prisoners. Over the next 40 years, from 1841 to 1881, she motivated people and state legislators to do something about this injustice and raised millions of dollars to build over 30 more appropriate mental hospitals and improve others. Her efforts even extended beyond the United States to Canada and Scotland. Finally, in 1908, Clifford Beers published his book, A Mind That Found Itself, which he described his struggle with bipolar disorder and the cruel and inhumane treatment people with mental illness received. He witnessed and experienced horrific abuse at the hands of his caretakers. At one point, during his institutionalization, he was placed in a straitjacket for 21 consecutive nights. His story aroused sympathy from the public and led him to found the National Committee for Mental Hygiene, known today as Mental Health America, which provides education about mental illness and the need to treat these people with dignity. Today, MHA has over 200 affiliates in 41 states and employs over 6,500 affiliate staff and over 10,000 volunteers. In the early 1950s, Mental Health America issued a call to asylums across the country for their discarded chains and shackles. On April 13, 1953, at the McShane Bell Foundry in Baltimore, Maryland, Mental Health America melted down these insane bindings and recast them into a sign of hope, the Mental Health Bell. Now the symbol of Mental Health America, the 300-pound bell, serves as a powerful reminder that the visible chains of misunderstanding and discrimination continue to bind people with mental illness. Today, the Mental Health Bell rings out hope for improving mental health and achieving victory over mental illness. In my next lecture, we will review intellectual developmental disorders. Intellectual developmental disorder, also known as intellectual disability, is a disorder with onset during the developmental period that includes both intellectual and adaptive functioning, deficits in conceptual, social, and practical domains.